I'm Dana Healy, and you're listening to Cities Speak.
I'm really excited to introduce our guest today, Senator John Marty, representing District 66, which includes portions of Ramsey County and the Northern Cities metropolitan area. He was elected in 1986 and is currently serving his 11th term in the state Senate. He serves as the ranking minority member in the Finance and Rules Administrations Committee. Today, he's here to talk about a really important piece of legislation that would prevent a serious problem with theft in our community. Senator John Marty, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure to be with you.
So I'd really like to talk about catalytic converter theft in our area. So in St. Paul alone, I've heard that there's over 600 cases that's been reported this year, and there's still many cases that go unreported. Can you tell us what is catalytic converter theft, and
Sure,
why has there been such an enormous spike in the last year?
sure. And it's been tripling each of the last several years, so it's going up exponentially. Well, catalytic converters are something that have been on the bottom of cars since the Federal Clean Air Act. They've been around for 30, 40, 50 years almost now. And they're a catalyst. The metals in them create a catalyst to help break down some of the unburnt exhaust and make them less toxic fumes going out of the exhaust of cars. So it's a logical clean air adaptation of virtually every car being manufactured in the world that's internal combustion engine has a catalytic converter on it. And while they're kind of dull looking piece of machinery under our cars, like a muffler, part of the exhaust system, um, they happen to have some metals in them, some very precious metals, some metals like rhodium that are like 12 times as valuable as gold. Tiny amounts of them, because you only need a thin layer of them to help catalyze the interactions to break down the toxic fumes. And so it's tiny amounts of these metals, but if you put something 12 times as valuable as gold and bolt it to the bottom of your car, one of my colleagues pointed out, you might have a problem there. And as these prices of these metals have gone up very fast in the last couple of years, again, I think it's like $26,000 an ounce for rhodium as of a few months ago. And the prices go up and down daily, but they're suddenly very valuable. And so thieves have learned, you get a Sawzall, one of these reciprocating saws, you can buy at Home Depot or Menards or whatever. You can buy one of those, slip under a car, and in a couple of minutes, cut off the converter. And because you're hidden under a car, it's very easy to do, even if it's on the side of the road in the middle of the day or in a parking lot at night and so on. And so thieves have learned there's a very quick way to get these, and they can get a couple $100 for one scrap converter. And if it takes you 2 minutes to cut it off, they found it's very profitable. It's a nationwide problem, but for some reason, Minnesota is leading the way. We got one of the higher states of catalytic converter theft right now.
So there's legislation that you have recently proposed about that this catalytic converter problem. Can you give us a high level of what that legislation looks like for our community?
Sure. Well, first of all, this is something I've been working on for a couple of years, but it's been very frustrating because while these rusting hulks of things under our cars um, don't look valuable, and they can sell them for, as I said, 200, sometimes 3, 4, $500 a piece. Often nowadays, $500 a piece. It costs you, the car owner, is sometimes $2,000 to $3,000 to get a replacement. And because of the shortage of the metals and the shortage of the catalytic converters, right now some cars are being out of action. I mean, you can drive it without it, not legally, but you can drive it without it. It just sounds like you took off the muffler of your car. It's extremely loud. And so it takes people's cars out of action for a couple months at times, and it often can cost $2,000 to $3,000 to replace. So what my legislation was trying to do was find a way that we could stop the problem. I looked at last year, I started looking at what other states were doing, and lots of attempts, lots of different approaches, but it's hard because there's no way to identify this scrap catalytic converter that I stole from your car came from you or from your car. There's no identification numbers or anything on it. Every car has a vehicle identification number, a VIN number, 16-digit number. Most cars in recent years, you can read it through the driver's front windshield. If you look at the car from outside, you can get the VIN number. But there's no identification like VIN numbers on catalytic converters. So law enforcement and some approaches have been trying to say, maybe we should mark all the catalytic converters. Let's get the manufacturers to stamp the VIN number on them when they sell a new car. But if they sell all new cars have it on, supposedly we could snap our fingers and it would happen today. It still means there can be millions of cars on the roads that don't have them marked. Some muffler shops and auto repair shops and police departments are taking it on to paint it on with a spray paint, a high temperature paint that can resist the exhaust heat. And there are ways of trying that, but none of them work. So our bill has got several simple points. First of all, we would make it a crime not to steal, it's already a crime to possess a used catalytic converter that's not attached to a vehicle, that doesn't have the VIN number, the vehicle identification number on the converter. Well, the obvious problem there is most of them don't have the number on it. But the solution here, by wording the way we've got the bill worded, if I take a catalytic converter off my car, which is unlikely, but a muffler shop, something went wrong, they take off the entire muffler system and the catalytic converter, so they take one off their scrap piece, they're gonna sell it for the metal. They should write the VIN number on it. It takes them a minute. They could use a permanent marker and that'll take care of it. An auto junkyard where they're scrapping out the entire cars, when they take them off, you write the VIN number on, or they actually can put a sticker on that identifies it through the VIN number and so on. And all we're saying is it would be a crime with the same penalties as the rough value of the theft. One converter would be misdemeanor, 3 or more would be a felony. But we're saying that we're going to make it a crime to possess a used converter that's not attached to a vehicle unless it has that number on it. Because any auto recycling yard or auto repair shop or individual who's legitimately taking off a converter, they can just write it on. It takes them a minute, but for a $300-400 piece of equipment, you can spend the minute to write the 16-digit number on. And the thieves, well, they could, supposing I slide under your car, cut off your converter and drive away. Well, I could even peek in your windshield and quickly write on the 16-digit number, or I could put a fraudulent number on. Either way, if the police catch me with a used converter cut off in my car, all they do is run the VIN number. If it has your car number on it, they call you up. Did you give so-and-so this converter? Oh, somebody stole it. Well, they got you for stolen property then. And if they put a false VIN number on, which would still be a crime because it has to be the VIN number from the car it was removed from. If they use a fraudulent number, they can figure that out too. They can run the number for that. No, that car's been gone. That was a California car and it's been off the roads for 25 years. They can figure it out. They can run the numbers and they can catch it. And so if it's a fraudulent number, they're going to catch it. If it's the legitimate number, they're going to get you for theft. So the thieves have no way of doing it. So they're going to just try and avoid it. So that's the biggest thing our bill does, is say it would be a crime to do that. We also say the only people who can buy a used catalytic converter are scrap metal dealers who are licensed. You'd have to show them proof of your ownership at the time of it. They'd have to do all their transactions not in cash anymore, but they'd have to send you a check or electronically deposit it a few days later. So law enforcement has a paper trail. So it's a very simple concept, but it should address the problem.
It's really interesting. I think it's a really good take on how to come about this really complex problem. So not only do we have the individuals stealing the catalytic converters, but we also have the points of resale. And you touched a little
Yes.
bit on that. Can you kind of expound upon the deterring of scrap metal dealers from purchasing these sawed-off converters?
Sure. First of all, some scrap metal dealers who say we're not going to deal with it because they know they're stolen. 99% of them, 99.9% are going to be stolen. I know I actually heard when I started legislation on this a year ago, one guy up north says, I do work on my own cars. I have 2 used converters. And I said, well, we want to try and figure out a way to do it. And we talked it through. And he says, I have receipts for the replacement converters I bought. I said, that sounds to me pretty good evidence, whatever. But when we came up with this idea, just write the VIN number on them. then in effect, he can show his ownership of them. Here's the VIN number on them. Here's the VIN of the cars they came off of. Everything else, he could sell them, get the several $100 he should get for each of his converters. But we're saying the bottom line, if you go on the Craigslist or you go on the Facebook, whatever it's called, marketplace, you'll find plenty of people. We buy cash, we pay cash for converters. Let us know. And if you contact some of them, a lot of them are from out of state and so on, and they'll say, "Oh, we'll be in Roseville, and yeah, how many? Oh, I got 10 of them. Okay, well, we'll be there on Saturday morning at 7:30 at the Walmart parking lot at the west end of it." And they show up at 7 in the morning, and you sell them the converters. Well, we'd make it a crime for them to purchase because they're not a licensed scrap metal dealer in Minnesota. So you could get them for the crime. You could get me for selling them to them for the crime. And so we cracked down by saying the only people who'd be able to buy them would be licensed scrap dealers. We do have one exception, and that is a very small number of converters get recertified. They're not sawed off. They use a blowtorch and take them off, and they get them recertified by the EPA to use as replacement parts. And that's a legitimate function. I have no problem with that. We want to make sure we protect that. So we say if one is recertified by the EPA for use on as a replacement part, an auto body shop could get it, auto repair shop, excuse me, an auto parts store could buy it, or you or I as an individual could. But unless it's been gone through their process for getting used as a reused part, nobody else except a scrap dealer could buy it. And that also we think will help interfere with the theft cycle here.
Really interesting because you have all these multiple points of how to combat this. So where is the bill right now? I understand that you've been working on this for 3 years.
Yeah.
It's a long process to get bills passed. Can you give us a status update?
Yeah, I'm extremely frustrated because I was hoping this year would be the year. And it was true, we were working along the way. I asked for a hearing on the bill 3 or 4 times, and I didn't have much luck with it. I didn't get a hearing. I did not get a hearing. I asked another committee chair because it would go through 2 committees, the Commerce Committee and the Judiciary Committee would both have to hear the bill. So when I couldn't get a hearing from the Commerce Committee, I contacted the chair of the Judiciary Committee saying, "Could you ask to see this bill first and maybe give me a hearing?" Well, no, they didn't want to do that. So I was never given a reason, never given an answer, never given anything, just no hearing. So I prepared the bill, got it in the latest shape possible, and I tried to offer it as a bill, as an amendment to the Commerce Bill, which had all sorts of provisions of things like this and so on. I tried to get it added there. They decided it wasn't germane to the bill. Mainly the author of the bill didn't want to have it considered. So it's setting on the side now. I'm still trying to find some way to get it going. The other point about this, though, I think the idea is so unique. I came up with some of the idea, and one of the national experts came up with the other part of it that makes the system work. And they were saying that they think this could be a model legislation for other states because no other states have figured out a way to do it, and this bill should take care of it, we think. I mean, it won't wipe out the problem. It'll highly reduce the problem because it makes it so much harder to do. And so I'm still hoping if there's no way to pass it here this year, I'm going to share this with as many legislators in as many states as I can, because I don't care. I want it to happen for our constituents here in our communities, but if other communities can benefit, great, and that'll just put more pressure on the legislature to pass it here. So I'm still hoping for some way to get it through this year, but I'm running out of options.
Do you have co-signers or bipartisan support?
Yes, there is definitely bipartisan support. I don't think there's no reason for this to be a partisan issue. I'm a DFLer, and the Senate Republican chair of the committee refused to hear the bill. But I've heard from plenty of Republicans who want to see this theft of something like this, which tends to hit people who can least afford to pay it the most. A lot of people in some of the suburban communities that 9 North covers, people park their cars in garages. They don't park on the street. A lot of the core cities and other communities, There aren't in apartment buildings, aren't garages for everybody. So they're in parking lots or on the street, and they're hit so much more. So I'm very concerned about our communities, but um, I do think there'll be enough pressure from bipartisan sources that we can get this through next year. But I don't want to wait. 6 thefts a day, more than 6 a day, just in St. Paul. And Minneapolis has it just as bad, in South St. Paul. And I think we're hearing from lots of people in Roseville who have had it happen. I've heard from people up in Sartell and other communities around the state. Small towns, it happens everywhere. And we think this could do it. We've talked with law enforcement. We've talked with experts on it. And so I'm hopeful, but extremely frustrated that we can't do it right now.
I totally empathize with you on that. So to kind of hit this home, when your bill passes, ultimately, what will it do for our community?
Sure. Okay. Well, one of the reasons we have this big problem is police can't do much about it. I've talked to people in Maplewood. I've talked to police department in Maplewood and St. Paul and Moorhead and so on. And they say one of the troubles is once in a while, they will find a car, somebody driving, they stop them for whatever reason, and they find 3 or 4 catalytic converters in the back seat, sawed off. They know they were stolen. They may even have the saw next to them. They know they were stolen, but where'd you get those? Oh, they're mine. I take scrap parts and so on. And the cop knows it's a theft, but they can't do anything because they have no probable cause to arrest them. Now, under this bill, they would have probable cause because those don't have catalytic, they don't have the VIN numbers on them. If they got the VIN numbers, we'll call in the VIN numbers and find out if they're legit, if they're stolen, or if you have a good reason to have them. And they can get them that way. They can get them for possession. They can get them for theft if they have the numbers on them. So one way or another, they can stop it there. And it doesn't take too many of these to take people out, because I don't think there's a huge number of people committing the thefts. Most of them are becoming larger and larger operations that are doing this, some of them on multi-state basis. And so if we make it much harder to steal here, it'll push, if anything, it'll push more thefts into other states. But we're going to get it here at some point. And my hope is we get this kind of thing nationally. There's no reason not to do this.
Well, thank you so much for giving us an update on this, and I wish you the best of luck on passing this bill. So thank you again for everything that you do for our community.
Thank you, Dana. It's been a pleasure to be with you today.
And to our viewers at home, if you've enjoyed this content, please like, comment, share it with your friends. This is really important stuff that we need to know about our community. We also have our e-news blast. If you are interested in more videos about your local community, please sign up for that.
You've been listening to Cities Speak. If you've enjoyed this show, please like, comment, and share on social at 9 North Media.